Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this is going to be a good one. Ken Thompson is with us. He is with Thompson Hypnotherapy. He is a clinical and medical hypnotherapist, and he's going to teach us a lot about hypnosis and the value of hypnosis. And before we get to Ken, though, I just want to remind you that if your mega banking relationship is in a state of affairs that even hypnosis wouldn't cure. You know what I mean by that, folks. If you're at one of those big banks and they just don't want to talk to you live, they want some computer-generated voice to talk to you, and you're having issues with your business and your business banking accounts and loans and what have you, and you just need a better situation. Here's the folks that I send to Renaissance. Here's what they come back and tell me. That Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them as a bank or as a business, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. That's a magic combination. And so here's the way to check it out. Go to renaissancebank.com, find a local office, and give them a call. A live person answers the phone. Imagine that. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome to the show Ken Thompson. Ken is, again, he's a clinical and medical hypnotherapist with Thompson Hypnotherapy. Ken, welcome.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about you and your work and how you're serving folks as a hypnotherapist.
Okay. A little backstory on me. I actually was a client before I became a hypnotherapist. I used to weigh 255 pounds. And I was type 2 diabetic on 2 types of blood pressure medication.
I'm looking at you, and you are a sliver of your former self. I never saw your former self, but you're no 255, my friend. Wow, that's quite a testimony.
And that was 9 years ago. I went to a hypnotherapist. My wife also went to the same hypnotherapist and went from a 14 to a 4 in the permanent weight loss program that we use.
Wow.
And so over the course of that weight loss, I found out a couple other things, that I no longer needed the blood sugar medication because my body could handle my blood sugar when I was at a healthy weight. And so I also lowered my blood pressure.
Wow. What prompted you to try hypnotherapy at that point in your life?
We had gone to a Braves game to see some friends that we hadn't seen in about 6-8 months. And when we got into the booth with them, I recognized his wife, but I didn't recognize him. He looked totally different. He had lost 65 pounds.
Wow.
So during the game, my wife was talking to him about how he lost the weight, and he explained he had gone to a hypnotherapist, a weight loss program, and had been successful. She got the information, and she started off the ball rolling and went to see them and signed up for weight loss. So at the time, I was working for a national electrical company as a project manager. My middle name was Stress. So she came to me and told me that the hypnotherapist works with helping people reduce their stress in their lives. So I said, okay, I'll go talk to him. I signed up for the stress reduction. And after the second week, he kept looking at me and saying, do you think you'd like to lose a couple of pounds of weight? No, I'm good. I'm fine. I know how it is.
Yeah.
After the third week, I said, I guess I could lose 20 pounds. 85 pounds later, here I am.
Wow. You lost 20 pounds about 4 times then. I love that. I love that. Wait, what is it about us men that we just don't want to admit that we need some help, right? What is that?
A little cognitive dissonance there.
My wife would certainly agree with that. But let's move on to a better subject. So I guess you tried it, and it was you became so passionate about hypnosis that project management was something you wanted to put in your rearview mirror. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. It was fortunate that the hypnotherapist we went to, he and his wife were on the Atlanta Center for Hypnosis Training. So he came to me after we were both were successful, and he said, "You've been so successful. Would you like to help others do that?" And at that point in time, I said, yes, no doubt. So we started our certification processes, and the rest is history. We've gone through multiple different certifications and everything since then.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. And unlike other weight loss, quote unquote, solutions, you kept the weight off. I'm sitting, folks, this is audio only, so I'm sitting here looking at Ken. He's obviously slim and trim.
That's one of the things that makes a difference in that with the hypnotherapy, because it's not just losing the weight. Diets, you can lose the weight. But the problem with a diet is it has a beginning and an end. And when it ends, guess what we do? We go back to doing the same thing we did before we went on a diet. And where does the weight go? It goes right back on.
Right.
So if you change the reason why you were overeating and why you were overweight and handle the stress, the boredom, and anxiety that caused a lot of that grabbing for the food as a comfort food, then you can keep it off.
I won't mention the name, but there's a big diet company. It's kind of like somebody told me about this big diet company. He said, I know it works. I've tried it 5 times. It worked every time. but which I thought was a great line. Let's talk about the myths of hypnosis. What people think it is that it is not, that you are constantly having to dispel.
One of the things that a lot of people think it is somebody controlling them or somebody doing something to them, and they're not aware of the fact that hypnosis is actually a normal activity of every one of our minds. When we dream at night, we're in a state of hypnosis is bridging between our conscious and subconscious mind. So whenever we think about something during the day, we're using that hypnosis to shuttle the information back and forth. But it's under the radar. When you're daydreaming, you don't go, wow, I'm in hypnosis. This feels great.
Yeah.
It says, wow, I'm enjoying this daydream.
Yeah.
So helping people to understand that it's not something that somebody is doing to you. It's something you already have, and you can learn how to use more of. Now, a lot of people know that there's a lot of the power of the mind they never tap into. This is one of those areas where you can tap into and actually learn how to use that to benefit you.
So are there other myths that you need to dispel while we're on that subject?
The myth that they can magically make something happen. It's like waving.
Bend a spoon or some foolishness like that, or is that what you're talking about?
Instantly have the weight instantly being gone, or the behavior being, hey, one session and you're all set.
Gotcha.
It's a process. It's a process of undoing a lot of the conditioning we've had from childhood.
Let's talk about that, because one of the points that you make is that we have roots in our minds, and I guess to some degree in our bodies, right? Our bodies store this kind of stuff, right? That were planted in our childhood. Say more about that.
When we're growing, learning about things as a child, as an infant, think about your mind as being like a dry sponge. And if you put a dry sponge into water, what does it do? It sucks up the water. Now, does it matter whether the water is dirty or clean? It just sucks up what's there. And later on, when you want to use that water that you sucked up, you squeeze it and what comes out? The dirty and the clean. So if you can figure out a way of being able to use, and change that water, take the dirt out of the water and start putting out the clean water, you'll be a lot better off in life. So it's a matter of helping people to get to the point that they start to realize a lot of what they're experiencing now is because of what they observed and learned as a child. It's what I call living a child's narrative. We bring things forward from our childhood without realizing we're bringing it forward. You hear about people dragging baggage forward with them. There's a lot of mental baggage that comes forward too. And have you ever sat there and you did something and you go, why did I do that? I know I shouldn't do that. You did it because it had become a habit, and that habit was something that you brought forward. But I have a question for you now, John.
Oh.
Do you have all your shoes that you used to wear as a child in your closet?
No.
Why not?
The shoe, because they don't fit.
So you outgrew them. Is it possible you outgrew some of the thoughts and behaviors and habits you learned as a child?
Now look at that path you led me down. Yeah, I would have to say yes.
So that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with our past and conditioning.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes the water analogy is a really good one too. Sometimes we might know of these events in our childhood or these situations or however you want to term it, depending on the circumstance, but we don't know the effect it's got on our mind. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's a very fair way to put it. And we don't realize people don't realize that every thought in the mind generates a physical response in the body. Now, I didn't say some, I said every. Now, some of them are so minor you don't notice them, but there are thoughts going in your mind and generating physical responses. If you're anxious, worried, stressed, there's physical responses in the body. And a lot of those are some of the psychosomatic disorders. There is no bug, virus, or bacteria that causes fibromyalgia, IBS, Crohn's disease. Those are all psychosomatic. They're generated by our negative response to stress in our minds. And those thoughts in our mind are the negative thoughts.
This seems logical to me. It seems logical, yet there's so many myths you have to dispel. So why is that?
Because hypnosis is not something you can put your finger on and say, this is it. It's a part of our mind's activity, but you can't pinpoint it and say, also to be clear, hypnosis is not therapy. Hypnosis is a delivery method, shuttling information back and forth. But I call it my Peach Pass because it allows me to deliberately access my subconscious mind directly. That's the only way you can deliberately access your subconscious mind is using your own natural hypnosis. But that lets me get to where the problems are, where the habits, beliefs, and behaviors are, and start working on them there at the source rather than going through the conscious mind and trying to get the conscious mind to talk to the subconscious. And that can take some time.
Yeah, and if you're not around the Atlanta area and you don't know what a Peach Pass is, that's basically get you in the express lane to get past all the traffic that is generally always piled up on the freeway.
That's exactly right.
So that's what you're really referring to. So what are weight loss is obvious, but do you have clients that come to you and maybe they don't know what's going on? Maybe they're having issues in their lives, but they don't know the source of. Unlike weight loss, which we reasonably know what the cause of that is, or having too much weight. But sometimes I can see how folks come to you as a last resort, and they've got things going on in their lives, and they don't know like the source of that. Is that a fair point?
It is a fair point, and it happens quite often. And one of the things, and that's the reason the way my therapy is structured, is around education. Because one of the biggest things is a lot of times we don't know why we're doing the things we're doing. We don't understand what's the functionality of what's going on in our minds that's causing us to do this. And so by helping them understand, it's, for instance, a panic attack. You know, I've had one client that came, had 2 panic attacks in the same week, wound up in the emergency room with being transported by paramedics to make sure she wasn't having a heart attack. And it was just her body had gotten so stressed out that her mind went into a panic, what you would say is a panic, and it was shutting down. But by talking with her and getting her to realize that it's actually just an oversensitivity to our normal body exercise response. Now, if you've played sports as younger, then you know that when you go out on the sports field, your breathing changes, your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense up, okay, and you start sweating, okay. That's a normal body exercise response. What do you do when you're having what's called a panic attack? Isn't it the same thing?
Yeah, very similar.
Of the same, okay? So it's really a body's natural physical exercise response, but I call it an unreasonable one because it's not reasonable to be having this attack. I hate the term attack because it sounds like the mind is attacking the body, and it's not. It's just getting you ready to go out on the field. But you're standing up to give a presentation, or you're standing up at work and under some pressure. So it really is a misnomer. But if you understand, have you ever heard a car alarm go off in the parking lot when somebody bumped the car?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Is the alarm broken?
No.
Or is it just too sensitive?
Yeah, it's very sensitive.
So what happens if you turn down the sensitivity on it? Goes back to working normal? What about turning down the sensitivity on our exercise response when we're standing up to do a presentation?
Yeah.
So it's helping people to see that, because one of the big things that happens is a lot of people think there's something wrong with them. They're broke. There's something, I got to get something fixed here. But it's not. It's just too sensitive to some things. And if you dial down that sensitivity, that's what I help my clients do.
Yeah. Ken Thompson is with us, folks. He is a clinical and medical hypnotherapist with his own firm, Thompson Hypnotherapy. So I want to get to some more stories, I guess, to just to give folks a sense of what you do, knowing that there's confidentiality involved here. So we're certainly not going to get into identifiers of clients. But I was wondering if you could share a story that helps illustrate someone not knowing, like they've got behavior that they don't know the source of, that there's as you've worked with them, there's a connection that seems logical that maybe was illogical right before you started working with them.
And just for clarification too, it's not just myself that's doing this. My wife is also a clinical and medical hypnotherapist, certified as well. And so it's a partnership. And so she works with her clients the same way I'm working with mine.
Gotcha.
So we have a male and female hypnotherapist in the company. Now, as far as when we're dealing with things that people are not aware of and what they're not really noticing, I think it's good to realize that the amount of energy that we expend trying to do some of these things, it's trying to realize that we are normally able to control a lot of these things if we learn how to do it. So we focus on being able to make those changes, and the education part is bringing them up to speed on that so that they can actually start to see the changes that they're making. And as we work with them, for instance, a lot of the things that I deal with is people don't realize that they can do these things, that they're capable of doing them. Someone a lot wiser than I by the name of Albert Einstein.
Yeah, he knows a few things.
And one of the things he taught me was that we can never solve a problem using the same level of thinking that we used to create it. So I've got myself into this mess by thinking the way I am. And if I keep thinking the way I am, I'm going to stay in the mess. But if I get somebody else to give me a different perspective, and that's what we do, we give them different perspective, how to look at it, to see it from a different direction. And this enables them to understand that they can figure out, they can get their way out of it on their own if we just guide them, just lead them on out. And it goes back to another thing that I use a lot in my practice goes back to another wise person. It's a little bit before my time by the name of Socrates.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
400 BC or so. Yeah.
Yeah. My kids would say I was best friends with him, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay. I understand. But one of the things Socrates believed was that we all have internal knowledge in our minds to solve our own problems. But we just can't figure out how to get that knowledge out. We don't know how to ask the right questions. So a lot of my sessions work on what is called Socratic questioning. I will ask my clients to look at things and see things, and how do they see it, and can they see it from this perspective? And they come up with the answers out of their own mind. Now, this is beneficial because if I were to tell you, you need to do this to make it happen, is there a general tendency to push back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just human nature.
But what if your mind says, we could do this? I can see how we could do this. We could do it by doing this. Are you a little more open to accepting it?
Yeah.
So that's called Socratic questioning.
Ken, we've talked about weight loss. We've talked about stress. What are some other conditions that hypnosis helps alleviate?
There's a whole list on my website, if you go to it, of what it's effective. It basically, if it's a behavior and it has tied to the way we act or behave in life, hypnosis can help with surgery, fast injury repair, jet lag, claustrophobia, a lot of the phobias. You just got to go down the list of things that are mind related. One of my clients actually came to me for a claustrophobia, and he's actually got a review up on the web where he came to me because his wife had set up a trip to Europe and it was going to take a long plane ride, and he was claustrophobic and couldn't sit in an airplane. So He came to me for that, and as he went through the program, I was able to help him release that phobia and move past it. But then he saw the brochure on the weight loss, and I just saw him the other day for one of my continuing little touch-ups, and he's down actually running with his teenage son in marathons.
Wow, that's a fascinating result. What happens when someone reaches out? And I would imagine when people reach out, they're frustrated, right? Maybe they've tried weight loss diets, both the legitimate and the illegitimate kind over time. They've tried all sorts of things, and then they don't know what to do about the behaviors they can't control, quote unquote. How does an initial consultation with you work when somebody reaches out?
That's a good question. And what we both do is we do a complimentary consultation, no cost or obligation, takes about an hour and a half or so, maybe a little longer. And we'll go over, first of all, we have a questionnaire we have them fill out with areas that they were looking to make changes in. And we've got some ideas on there of what they might be looking for, and they'll check those boxes. And then when they come in for the consultation, I will go over that and get a history of, first of all, making sure I understand what their definition of it is. Because everybody's definition of anxiety is different. Everybody's definition of stress is different. So it wouldn't work for me to be working with my clients on my definition of stress when it has nothing to do with what they believe. So I'll find out what they actually believe it is, and then I'll start bringing up some side notes to it, and I'll give them information. For instance, anxiety. A lot of people are very anxious. When you think about anxiety, what do you think it's about? Is it something that hasn't happened yet and you're worried about it? So it's in the future.
Right.
There's only one part of your subconscious mind that can handle future events, your imagination. I won't mention the name, but somebody's made a lot of money on monsters on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then I guess out of that, you recommend some sort of course of therapy.
Right. After I go through the consultation, then what I'll do is sit down and ask them what they really want to achieve, and then I ask them the very important question: do you want to make these changes, or does somebody want you to make those changes? And the reason that's so important is because when people come, and they're coming because somebody else says, I want you to go to them so you can stop smoking. I want you to do this. You're not going to be inclined to do it because all of this is up to you. It's your mind. It's your behaviors. It's your habits, and if you don't want to change them, you're not going to. So if they say they want to make those changes, then I'll figure out how many sessions I think it's going to take and give them the session count and the cost.
Do you have I'm just thinking about trying to put myself in where people are in their heads, which is a dangerous thing for me to try to do sometimes. But I can imagine that one of the fears people have is, I'm going to come to Ken. He's going to know all my deep, dark secrets. Is that a objection you get from people, or that's unspoken?
I don't get that much because after I've had a consultation, they generally have realized that I'm out to help them. I'm not out there to hurt them. I'm out there to help them. And we have a rapport that's built up during the consultation. And the same thing with my wife. She builds up a rapport during that consultation. When you come in, it's not like you're coming down and revealing your secrets. It's coming down to find someone that can help you find another way of looking at them. And just like what Einstein said, we start looking from a different perspective, you'll see things differently. And so with that, they start opening up. And I haven't had any problems with that. About 60% of my clients are women that come to me and open up, and then men as well.
So I think at this point, it would be great to, and again, we've talked about some of these, but what needs to be going on in my life that makes me think I need to pick up the phone and call Ken?
Have you ever felt stuck? Get that feeling that you just don't know which way to turn, or you don't know, do I keep doing this? Why am I continuing to do these habits that are detrimental to us, using these habits that are detrimental, and instead of changing? And another thing, too, even with people that want to make changes, for instance, when it comes to things like the positive affirmations, you've probably heard.
Yeah.
If you haven't used them.
Sure.
Have you noticed that it takes a long time for positive affirmations to work? Sometimes, if you Google it, they tell you it takes up to maybe several months even, multiple days, several months every day. What people don't realize, and this is one of the things I shared during the consultation, first of all, if you're going to have an affirmation, you've got to have buy-in from your subconscious mind. If you don't have the buy-in from your subconscious mind, the affirmation is going nowhere because it's hitting a brick wall. Think about a thief that's been stealing from people and robbing them and all for 40, 45 years. One day he walks out and says, I'm changing. I'm an honest man. I'm an honest man. I'm an honest man. What is his subconscious mind saying? Who are you? And get the other guy back, because we know 40, 45 years you've been stealing and robbing and all this. But if he were to say, I want to become more honest, so I'm working on getting that every day, his subconscious can't reject it because it's not a stone wall. It has to accept some of that. And that's where you start working. To give a good positive affirmation, make sure it's got some buy-in. And I share that with my clients in the consultation. If that helps them, they go out the door with it. Good for them.
Yeah, that's great. So you have already mentioned a couple, but I think it would be great at this point if you could share maybe another success story or two that helps illustrate the great work that you do. Again, knowing that these are confidential relationships that you have with clients, but whatever you can share on that front to show the results that you deliver, that would be great.
One of the things, and we talked about trauma and PTSD, and one of the things, that's one of the focuses of quite a few of my clients, and I'm talking about some deep trauma, and I'm not going to get into details on it.
Sure.
But there are things that people don't realize, that trauma is not stored like a normal memory. Trauma is stored in a certain part of the mind that is reserved for our fight or flight. It's our primal brain, and that's stored there with that negative emotion there. And I've had multiple clients that have come with that kind of traumatic feelings, and the flashbacks come because it is in that part of the mind, and it automatically flashes up there. You can't think about it. It's automatic. That's right there. But there is a way of reprocessing that. And when you reprocess it, it moves back to a normal place. The emotion is released from it, and then it can move up into the normal memories in the upper cortex. And the emotions go back to where they are, and you no longer are traumatized by that thought of that event. And I've had multiple situations with some pretty deep trauma. And some of them, the car accidents, for instance, I had a delivery driver that had a car accident and was afraid to drive. And when he left the sessions, he was back driving his delivery van.
Wow. Ken, this has been great. And I can't imagine there aren't some folks at this point that would like to know more, would like to get in touch with you and maybe talk about their own personal situation and see how you might be able to be helpful to them. So let's give them directions on how they can find you.
Very good. You can reach my wife or myself on our ThompsonHypnotherapy.net website, and there's information up there. We've got some information up there as well as some of the reviews and stuff that they can read. And so they can give us a call, either my wife or myself, at ThompsonHypnotherapy.net is the website. 937-499-4273 is my wife's number, and 770-714-6730 is mine. And you can email us at Lisa@ThompsonHypnotherapy.net or Ken@ThompsonHypnotherapy.net.
Ken Thompson, clinical and medical hypnotherapist with Thompson Hypnotherapy. Ken, thank you so much for coming in and sharing the results and the great work you do. We're delighted we could shine a light on it.
John, I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed being here, and I thank you.
Thank you. Hey, folks, a couple of quick things before we let you go for today. If you're having bad thoughts, yes, pun intended, about your value and the value that you deliver to clients, if you're a solopreneur, small professional services firm, and you're in the expertise business, consultant, coach, attorney, CPA, bookkeeper, what have you, and those negative mindsets are affecting how you see your value, how you price your value, I've written a book just for you. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. See, what Ken was talking about resonates with me because all that stuff is setting up there in your head right next to your expertise, and it all gets mixed up. And that's a bad place to be. And so I certainly don't have the credentials Ken does, but I talk about that in the book. and how you can overcome it. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more about the book and where to buy it. Also, I just want to thank you. If you're listening to the show, I just want to thank you because we're coming up on show, I think, number 870, something like that, for North Fulton Business Radio. We've been at this for almost 9 years, and we have only gotten this far because of you. You support us in so many different ways. You send us great guests, you share the show, you like us on social media, and we're grateful to you for that. I'm grateful to you for that because you help us to live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. Thank you. So for my guest, Ken Thompson, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.